Let's go now live to the Shadow Education Minister Sarah Henderson. Thanks for joining us, Sarah. I wonder whether you could first just share your thoughts on the latest developments, the fact that Anthony Albanese has had something of a national cabinet meeting on these issues, and the fact that police have made an arrest.
Well, Chris, good afternoon. It is certainly positive that police have arrested this person, so some progress on that shocking attack on the synagogue. But let's not forget, Chris, this is a national crisis that requires national leadership, and we have seen the Prime Minister missing in action. It has taken him months and months to call a national cabinet meeting just to bring the relevant ministers around the table from the states and territories, and that's appalling. He's made no response at all to our package of tougher criminal laws that we have announced. And of course, Peter Dutton has absolutely led the charge in saying there must be a zero tolerance approach of antisemitism. And as we've talked about many times, Chris, ground zero is our universities, where we saw for many, many months the Education Minister Jason Clare and the Prime Minister taking no action on the horrific protests, the encampments, the threats to Jewish students and staff. And of course, when you embolden these people, this is what happens. It is absolutely shocking. And as I say, this is a national crisis, and we have seen no leadership at all from the Prime Minister.
What about these reports that there is intelligence suggesting that overseas interests could be involved behind these attacks? What more do we know about that? What more should we know?
Well, of course, the Australian Federal Police have a brief National Cabinet about this, and it is, of course, a very serious situation and further evidence that this is not just a matter of community safety and a matter of safety for the Jewish community, but also national security. It's deeply concerning, Chris. But as I say, the lack of action from this government on this growing anti-Semitism crisis is ricocheting around the world. And we now have Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharon Haskell, saying, does someone have to die? What needs to happen before we can see the appropriate amount of action from this hopeless and incompetent government? So at the very least, the Prime Minister needs to match the package of reforms that we have announced, led by Peter Dutton, including, of course, mandatory minimum sentences for terrorism of 6 years. This is domestic terrorism, Chris. It is extremely frightening. It is extremely serious, and it is about time this Prime Minister started treating this issue with the seriousness it deserves.
Well, the extraordinary thing, of course, is that the coalition, the opposition, as you say, as well as community leaders and media commentators, so many people have been calling for tougher rhetoric and tougher action and tougher law enforcement since October 2023, more than 15 months ago. Yet we have heard this from the Prime Minister now, claiming that he's actually been taking action.
Peter Dutton, for someone who was responsible for some national security issues as Minister for Home Affairs, should know better. We have acted. We have established the first envoy on anti-Semitism. That could have been done by the former government. We've outlawed Nazi and hate symbols. That could have been done by the former government. We've outlawed doxing. That could have been done by the former government. We've provided increased security funding for synagogues, places of worship, schools, etc. That could have been done by the former government as well.
I've got to say, Sarah Henderson, he seems all at sea. He just doesn't understand this. They've been lacking in tough rhetoric and action right from the start. And also, I think what plays into this very strongly, and I think the Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister has picked up on this point as well, that over the past year, Anthony Albanese and Penny Wong and the Albanese Labor government have spent more time criticising Israel than they have criticising Hamas and the other Islamist terrorist organisations.